Welcome back to Sparkle and Shine, your go-to podcast for expert tips and tricks from JP Carpet Cleaning Expert Floor Care. I'm your host, Layla, and today I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit different than what I've talked about before. Now, I've spoken about regrouting before and why it's necessary and yada, 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 but today I kind of want to touch upon the cost and what goes into the average cost of regrouting a shower or any tile that you have in your home. So if you've stumbled upon this podcast at this specific episode, it's likely you're looking for ways to revamp or update a tiled space in your home. And let me tell you, you've come to the right place. So without further ado, let's get going. So tile restoration and certain renovation projects may lead you to the word regrouting. Well, what is it and why should you consider that? And for that matter, what is the cost of regrouting or the average cost of shower regrouting? So for the first question, what is regrouting? Regrouting is the term used to refer to the process where the grout is removed from between the tiles and replaced with new grout. You may have this service performed if there's a leak in your shower, cracks in the grout, or simply put, the cleaning just doesn't cut it anymore. Regrouting prevents your shower from failing and causing excessive damage to your home through leaks and traveling water. That said, regrouting can be a time-consuming and difficult task, especially if you don't have the experience or appropriate tools to perform the work. This is why regrouting is typically left to the professionals, though if you want to try DIY, go for it. Knowing what to look for when hiring a professional regrouting service is key. So, excuse me. Why should I invest in regrouting? Or rather, why should you invest in regrouting? Well, again, one of the most important things you can do in your shower space, your kitchen, your countertops, even your patio or your pool area is to regrout the tile. It's not always necessary to replace the entire tile flooring. Regrouting prevents, again, your shower from failing and causing excessive damage to your house. It can be kind of hard to do on your own, like I said, so hiring a professional regrouting expert is likely inevitable. But before you find a reputable professional, it's vital to know what the average cost is so that you're going into this with your eyes wide open. And it will help you avoid any hidden charges and also helps you to set your budget accordingly. For example, if you've just stumbled upon the word, you might not have any idea of what the cost might be. The purpose of this podcast is to help you understand how closely that budget might compare to the average cost and exactly what goes into determining that price. Okay, now, I've said it several times, the average cost to get your shower regrouted. Don't let your budget go out of hand because of hidden surprises. Don't lose control of your budget to the minutia either. Many things are considered when bidding on this kind of service. As we all know, of course, prices vary based on location and even by zip code. So don't be alarmed if there seems to be a discrepancy between the average regrouting cost in Los Angeles, where JP Carpet Cleaning Expert Floor Care is located, versus somewhere like Fort Worth, where the pricing is different because the costs in that city are different. Okay, so now that we've gotten all of the pre-information out of the way, what are the factors affecting the cost of shower regrouting? When it comes to maintaining your bathroom, your kitchen, your pool, anywhere you have tiles, the average cost can vary wildly, as previously stated. One of these reasons, the factors that can influence the cost is going to be the type of tile. The type of tile in your shower plays a significant role in determining the cost of regrouting. Ceramic and porcelain tiles are common and generally more affordable to regrout because they're less delicate. On the other hand, natural stone tiles like marble or granite require specialized care and can drive up the cost. For example, if you have marble tile, there might be a premium due to the delicate nature and the need for expert handling. Not only that, but many of these types of tiles, these natural stone tiles, have very, very thin grout lines because that's simply the style, which means that our normal tools that we use to make the process go faster, we can't use when it comes to those kinds of flooring. Tile size is another thing to consider. Tile type implies the size. Some bathroom tiles are small mosaic tiles. These are incredibly difficult to regrout, and most services will either refuse or charge quite a bit more than standard regrouting might cost. So these kinds of tiles are also referred to as penny tiles, or if you think about those itty bitty little hexagon tiles, those are the tiles we're talking about here. JP Carpet Cleaning Expert Floor Care does provide a slightly different option. And if tile and grout cleaning services aren't able to achieve the results that you're looking for, this extra option might still be able to help. And basically, when those kinds of floors need regrouting, they're usually already pretty empty. The grout lines are already pretty loose because it is just such a small space. So what we do is something we call skimming, which is providing a very small layer of grout over the top. It may need more repair and more servicing than if the whole floor were to be changed or if you had larger tile, but it is an option. It's a little bit more cost effective than changing the entire floor. So now the types of grout. Grout type is another crucial factor for two very different reasons, actually. The first question, of course, is going to be what type of grout do you currently have? That will affect the labor cost. For example, unsanded grout is much easier to remove than the old style cement grout that's in many of the older LA homes, and in turn may cost less overall if you have unsanded grout. Epoxy grout as well is much more difficult to remove than this unsanded or sanded grout that you might get at your local hardware store. The next thing to consider is what type of grout do you want? This is important because there are varying types of grout. The first one is cement-based or concrete-based grout, and then there's epoxy grout. Cement-based grout is a less expensive material, but it is more prone to staining and wear. It does tend to crack more frequently. So you might end up repairing it again or more frequently even after you're regrouting. Epoxy grout, though, is pricier because of there's a 2 to 3 step process required simply to install the grout itself. But the price of the material itself makes sense because epoxy grout is superior in durability, and it is resistant to stains and other chemicals. And truthfully, if you choose to opt for epoxy grout, you'll have a higher initial cost, but it can save you money in the long run by reducing maintenance needs. Like I said, the opposite of the cement-based grout. There is a third option that we prefer, and this is a resin-based or a polymer grout. Polymer grouts are typically more water-resistant and flexible than cement grouts, and are also more affordable and require less curing time than epoxy grout. So this is the option that we typically go with, but you are more than welcome to whatever option you prefer. Shower size, of course, is another factor to consider. Naturally, the size of your shower will impact the overall cost as well. But it's important to understand why. And this as well applies to any other tiled space that you need regrouted. Showers are just the easiest example. Now, assuming all else is equal in the tiled shower, i.e. you've got 4x4 tiles and the standard size grout lines on the walls and the floor, it would be safe to assume that a large shower would cost more. So if you have a standard 3x3 shower, that would cost less than a 4x3 shower or a 4x4 shower, and so on and so forth, which makes sense. Larger showers require more labor time to remove the intact grout. However, and this is why regrouting estimates become a little bit confusing, is that bathrooms and the tile walls are all very different. If the tile walls are large tiles, say you're 36 by 36 inches, you have fewer grout lines to handle, which might reduce the overall cost, even though the shower itself is larger. Conversely, if you have a stall shower that has 4x4 inch tiles with incredibly large grout joints, like you would never do this, but if you had a 1/4 inch grout line between your 4x4 tiles, that's a lot more grout that needs to be removed, which may drive up the price. You could also consider the material needs. Think of it like painting a room. The bigger the space, the more paint and time you need. So the larger the grout lines, the smaller the tile, the longer the grout replacement process might take, and the more material will be needed to install new grout. And finally, the condition of the current grout work. As I hinted at earlier, the existing condition of your grout is a major consideration. If your grout is already crumbling and missing and half the shower is already empty, it might be easier to remove whatever's left. However, if there is significant mold growth, potential water damage will need to be accounted for. And then again, if the grout is perfectly intact, but you just want to change the color and there's a lot of grout lines to remove, you might end up paying a little bit more simply because there's a lot more to do. Minor touch-ups will cost less, but a full overhaul can be more expensive. That is just obvious. In general, the regrouting process can be an expensive endeavor. One surefire way to manage the actual cost is actually regular cleaning. As expressed in the previous article, regular cleaning gives you a chance to notice cracks, missing or chipped grout, and excessive staining before it leads to water damage, or before the damage gets so far that it becomes a massive repair rather than a small minor repair. It gives you a chance to invest in those repairs rather than having to replace your entire shower or whatever else the water might have caused. Now, we've talked about the various things to consider when trying to understand how much regrouting might cost. And maybe at this point you've decided you're going to reach out to a service and you're going to ask them about their services and you're going to get a better estimate from a professional. There are a few questions that you should ask yourself before regrouting. Now, having the answers on hand before reaching out to a service will really help that service over the phone give you the answers you're looking for and maybe even provide you an estimate over the phone. These questions are very broad, but I've tried to explain a little bit in detail as to why these questions are important. So the first question is the work area floor tile, wall tile, or countertop tile? Similarly, is it pool tile? The location of the work is important because it'll provide us with significant amount of information about the scope of work. For example, floor tile will require the technician to be on their knees, while countertop tile doesn't. If it's tile you need regrouted in a pool, you would need to drain the pool and we would have to be on a ladder. All of these things go into the understanding of the scope of work and will help us understand exactly your needs as well as what we need to prepare in order to properly handle the job. What is the square footage of the space is the next question. Again, this is one of those very, very standard questions. However, it can be kind of tricky depending on the space, hence why we ask about the work area first. If this happens to be a countertop or floor that you need regrouted, figuring out the square footage is easy. Measure one end to the other, the width and the length of the room or the space or the whatever, and multiply them together, you've got the square footage. However, if it's a shower regrouting project and you need the shower walls done, providing the square footage won't be nearly as simple. I mean, the math all still works out the same, but because it's floor and walls, there's a little bit more that goes into it. So at this point, we would ask if this is a standard shower or if the entire shower needs regrouting. We'd ask how high up your shower walls go. Is it 3 walls, 2 walls, so on and so forth. Again, if this is a pool, we would ask, are there 1 line of tile, 2 lines of tile, and try to get the square footage based on that to really understand the scope of work. The next question, is it indoors or outdoors? Again, this is another one just to help us understand the scope of work better. It won't necessarily affect the cost to regrout the tiles, but it does help us understand the needs. So indoors, again, generally includes a kitchen or a bathroom, maybe even your living room or dining room, a hallway, those areas where you would have tile indoors. Outdoors might imply a patio or a pool. Outdoor tile regrouting also suggests needing to consider and manage the weather. It's not just for the technician sitting under the sun and regrouting, but also for the curing process of the grout. Again, it doesn't necessarily affect the cost to regrout tiles, it just means scheduling might be a little more tricky. So if you need to regrout your patio and it's not a covered patio, we would need to find 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 days in a row that it will not rain. So that way the grout is given time to cure properly and harden in its new space. Hence why I say scheduling might be a little more tricky if you're in areas that don't have perpetual sunshine like Los Angeles. Now, the next question, is there access for the technician to perform the work? Again, this goes more to the tile shower regrouting. Small showers don't typically lend a lot of space to maneuver. So you've got your large technician sitting there on his knees, squished to himself, trying to reach all the little nooks and crannies in your shower. Again, maybe it doesn't affect the cost, but it does help us understand the needs of your job. Similarly, regrouting behind a kitchen sink doesn't necessarily allow enough access for the technician to reach with our grout removal tools. So we might even ask you to remove the plumbing first or remove the fixtures first so we can get behind there, even just with a hand, to make sure that we're appropriately managing those small spaces. What is the size of the tile and the grout lines? This may affect the cost. Typical sizes for grout lines are 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch, or 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch is usually the largest you'll get. Sometimes you'll get smaller than 1/16 of an inch, especially with natural tiles or natural stone tiles. The size of the tile, of course, you could go anywhere from, like I said, those little itty bitty penny tiles to there's 1x1, 2x2, 4x4. I could go on for days listing all the different types and sizes of tiles. Now, what type of tile are we working with? Is it natural stone, ceramic, porcelain? As we mentioned earlier, this type of tile is more for us to understand the space. It may also indicate if there's any additional work needs to be done to make sure that we appropriately clean those spaces. Natural tiles, right, have smaller grout lines. We can't necessarily use the heavy-duty tools that speed things up, and so on and so forth. So understanding the scope of work, again, is what this question is for. And what type of grout do you need removed? Again, like I said, some types of grout are easier to remove than others. We have special tools to handle whatever type of grout you have, but knowing what you have makes sure that we have enough of that tool on hand. And then, of course, what type of grout do you want? Most folks will ask for our recommendation. Others have researched to figure out what they want. Some will insist upon epoxy-based grouts. Others prefer pre-mixed grout or a pre-sealed grout. And yet even others might have already purchased a 25-pound bag of their chosen grout. So it really just depends on you, your wants, your needs, and the space that you're having regrouted. For example, glass tiles should only ever have non-sanded grout installed. Now, the final question that we have here, that's probably one of the most important questions that your service provider will ask you is the regrouting meant to fix any specific problems? Now, this might not necessarily refer to water damage. Many times the grout replacement process is meant to address things like loose tiles or filling and sealing broken tiles. Sometimes even just removing excessive grout from wide joints may require regrouting services. But if you are trying to address a specific issue, let your technician know that, because that will help them properly handle whatever situation you're dealing with. Now, this list of questions is by no means exhaustive, but you can kind of see why it might be difficult to truly find a quick answer online of how much does regrouting cost. And yes, I did do finger quotes there, especially when you start beginning to factor in labor cost and material cost. So the next section I have here is some examples and estimates of what you might encounter. It's math time. So you're more than welcome to kind of gloss over or glaze out as I go through this. But I'm just trying to make sure that you understand what we're looking at and what a professional company might see when they come to take a look at your shower, kitchen, or bathroom. So again, the Cost of the regrouting depends upon the space. Working only with the shower for now, we'll consider a standard 3x3 stand-up shower. This kind of shower has a tiled floor and 3 walls tiled 7 feet up. So you would calculate the total square footage. The floor is 3x3, which is 9 square feet. The walls are 3x7, which is 21 square feet. There's 3 of them, 63 square feet. So we have a total of 71 square feet. Now you would consider the type of tile. The average price can vary depending on the size of the grout lines, the size of the tile, the type of grout to be removed, as I stated previously. Expect your prices, and this is a crazy range, but expect your prices to range from $12 per square foot to $30 per square foot. $30 per square foot. Smaller tiles with wider grout lines will be more time consuming than large tiles with slim grout lines. So you might see large tiles with slim grout lines being closer to the $12 per square foot range, while the small tiles with wide grout lines would be closer to the $30 per square foot range. Now, at this point, you have the average cost and you have the total square footage. So on the low end, you'd be looking somewhere around $850, while on the high end, you'd be looking around $2,100. Now, before you panic at this high value, consider your shower specifically and the list of questions that I went through earlier. This range is simply a guide to help you determine an appropriate budget. Consult with a professional tile regrouting service for exact pricing, as some companies might even charge per the hour or per the scope of work, rather than the square footage. The second example is a little bit older, and the pricing has all been updated. But for continuity's sake, I just want to walk through another exercise so that it sticks in your head. So on average, and this wasn't, like I said, an older example, so this is pre-2023, the average cost used to be somewhere between $10 to $25 per square foot. And that cost did include material and labor. However, if we were to consider a Los Angeles home, you would have a 32 by 32 inch square shower, and a rectangular shower is usually 36 by 48 inches, so that's 3 feet by 4 feet. So back then, looking at a shower, you would see somewhere between $560 to $1,400 or $700 to $1,750 for that larger size. Now, I've talked a lot about math and numbers and things to consider, but these are all really important tools to help you determine the average cost of shower regrouting. Now, if you're in Los Angeles and you want to hire the most knowledgeable professional for regrouting, Peter with JP Carpet Cleaning Expert Floor Care is the choice. We help you with all sorts of things, but regrouting is a huge and important way to revive the beauty of your shower. So with all that said, I've covered everything that I can possibly think of for right now. And, as I said, these are just some of the most commonly asked questions that our technicians might refer to in order to understand the scope of work and help you understand the average cost of what's going on and understand what goes into regrouting. Now, if you liked this episode and you want to hear more, please let me know. If you have other questions or you need more detail or want me to expand further on certain things, let me know that too. I'm absolutely happy to continue answering more questions. It's my favorite thing. And as usual, don't forget to tune in next week for more expert advice from JP Carpet Cleaning Expert Floor Care. I'm Layla, wishing you a sparkling clean home. Until next time, keep shining.